Thank you so much for all that you do for our island, and now, for the people of Puna. And I just want to say the health and safety of our people first. That is of utmost importance, and with no disrespect to Mr. Garbarino, but what we can learn historically from what has happened around the island, from our, the people in Puna who have gone through similar situations like this, and how they came together as a community to survive. So when I'm talking about when you're isolated and how we can come together and barter, and we did it without money when we had strikes, but we survived. The most important thing is that we took care of our families and our children and the health and safety. And I commend the administration and Ms. Oliveira. Thank you so much for all you do. And yeah, it's a touch and go type of thing. We don't know what's happening from moment to moment. Anything can happen. That's just how life is on this island. We've experienced so much. I know growing up, we've experienced a lot, and it's still happening. And, there's a lot of newcomers to this island, and I would say go look at some of the historical values that we learn from the people of our past and the children. And I like what, Tiffany Edwards-Hunt said, look at what are the positives that can happen from this. Don't concentrate on that. Don't look at the glass half empty, but let's look at it as half full. And how can we come together as people? Because if we survive as people and we're safe and we're healthy, that's the ultimate goal. So, and we have each other. So, and things can grow from there. So, thank you so much for all you do for us and keeping that culture and lifestyle alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Mr. Iligan, your light. Oh, wait, Ms. Eoff.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Oliveira, and I'd like to thank the administration and all of the many people in the administrative staff that have been going well beyond the call of duty to be there back you up and help people understand what's happening. One thing that I wanted to ask, I know there's a lot of assistance that can come from the federal government and even from the state and stuff. And maybe our small contingency relief that we have, we're all, I'm sure, more than willing to put towards whatever efforts you could help us to identify, because I, for one, would like to contribute whatever I could. But sometimes, just by the definition of emergency or disaster or things like that are handed down to us from the state or the federal government, may not actually be applicable to, like, say, a slow-moving disaster, as opposed to one that's, happens without us being able to prepare more than a day or so, like, say, a tidal wave or something that we can predict more. So I was just wondering if there's any way to adjust some of the benefits that are going to come our way to tailor it more to a type of a disaster that we're looking at, or I don't know if it's possible, but even with insurance and just federal funds, that I think there's so many restrictions. And, like, say, what I've heard about insurance companies saying, if you move from your home, before a certain time of it being destroyed, then your insurance is not valid anymore. Or, I don't know. I'm sure there's many situations like this, but we're looking at something that you can't sometimes wait till a 24-hour or a 48-hour evacuation or something. So I'm just wondering if there's ways to amend or correct some of the things that might inhibit us from doing things, just because we're looking at something that doesn't act that way.
You're correct in that.
Darryl.
You're correct in that the type of disaster that we're facing, or the hazard that we're facing, doesn't fit the mold of your typical weather event, tsunami event, because it's something you're watching unfold
That's what I was
every
trying to
day, and it's just very unique. And as an example where we see the challenges with not fitting into the normal mold of things is, with Highway 130, that's a state highway that would be, if and when it's affected by the lava flow, subject to federal reimbursement to recover or repair that road. So technically, we could get some federal assistance to undo the impact that the eruption has had on the road. But to take a proactive measure to, let's say, breach the highway that would allow it to be recovered faster would not be recoverable under the definition of an emergency or a disaster. So it doesn't fit the mold, because here we're trying to be proactive and mitigate the impact ahead of time. But yet, the impact hasn't occurred, so it doesn't fit the definition of an emergency or a disaster. So I think we'll see changes, or the desire to change some of these things going forward, because there's some very unique hazards and disasters across the country, this being one of them. But I just want to let you folks know, I appreciate the praise and the recognition, but really, it's truly a team effort. I just wish the community could see and feel or experience the amount of support that I get and our office gets from every county, state, federal, private agency that's out there, and even the community, because the community in particular with Puna, with Izell, and now this tremendous outreach from the community and outpouring of support. As examples, with the movement of livestock from Ka'ohe, that was Dr. Moniz and his partner, Dr. Kim, helping the residents of Ka'ohe that were ranchers and farmers move their livestock. And if it wasn't for them doing what they did, reach out, identify pastures, identify alternate sites, again, it's just, the tremendous amount of teamwork that takes place. And like I said, even within the community, people stepping up with, help Puna with trying to help find shelter for pets. So much has come out of these disasters with, people stepping up to find solutions. And I know there'll be more solutions coming. So although you say, thank you to me, it's really thank you to everybody else. That's working just as hard, if not harder, to get things done. So thank you.
I'm sure it reaffirms most of our feeling about how beautiful this island and the people and the Aloha spirit that lives here is. One more question, and I don't know, maybe you can help me phrase this one too, but if Puna Geothermal Venture, say, isn't able to provide the electricity that it does currently to the grid, what would that mean for the island? I heard you say there may be an opportunity for them to provide electricity to the community, immediate community, but would the lack of that, what they provide to the Helco, to the grid right now, be any kind of a problem to the rest of the island?
In our discussions with Helco, it shouldn't pose a problem if they lost the generation capability of PGV, but the PGV was able to support that region. Obviously, that would mean a reliance on other generation operations that they have in place. Again, they are trying to identify how do we sustain a community that might be isolated? How do we sustain the greater community, which is the whole island? If you just think about how the interdependency of the communities, a large portion of the workforce in South Kohala is from Puna. If they are isolated and unable to commute, you're going to have businesses that will be hurting without employees. It's going to be an island-wide impact with this event, if not statewide. So it may appear to be a regional issue, but it truly is a community-wide impact.
Well, I, again, just wanted to commend you for, you have to think of so many things, and you seem to be very cool under pressure, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iligan, it's your turn.
He went through it.
Oh, wait, Mr. Iligan, we have Ms. Woolley.
If he wants to go first.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to add on to Councilmember Eoff's question. I talked to Helco, and I think they try to have on backup 51% of their power. So if they lose generation, they would activate those on backup. But I do want to ask, and what are like how when I was talking to Helco, and the paper also stated some of their creative solutions regarding trying to cover the poles, so because they think that lava is kind of like water where it would just go on the side, it won't push it. And well, I wanted to ask you, other than railroad, government beach road, and chain of craters, what are some ways we can provide access to Puna if it was cut off that are creative? And
Well, you heard earlier about the bridging concept, and this, as recent as this morning, we had conversations with the Corps of Engineers, and we're trying to refine our request for their technical expertise and assistance. Depending on a lot of different variables, like the width of the flow, how it moves, whether or not it'll widen and spread out, breaching Highway 130 and allowing it to flow on its natural course based on all of the analysis that was done by HVO as far as the steepest areas of descent and those what they call graben lines or channels that the flow normally follows, the natural terrain and topographical features. If we are able to breach the highway and allow the flow to proceed under its natural course, then there may be opportunities to bridge that gap at some point. Restoring Highway 130 would be a critical priority to trying to get some normalcy back to that area. We've looked at other, suggested routes. There have been suggestions from members of the community that there used to be a road that went from Kalapana Black Sand subdivision up to Volcano, but that's right across the active flow. So again, although we can't find those roads, we know that if you just followed its directional path, it would not be a likely or viable option. Looking at the Poiki boat ramp area, what capabilities and capacities it currently has, or its limitations, whether or not that could be expanded to provide for some seafaring resources to come in and out. Again, it has its limitations currently. We asked the Corps to also give us some, preliminary assessments. What would it take to expand the capacity there? But anybody that's ever either used the ocean down there for recreation activities, fishing, whatever, it's one of the most dynamic ocean areas around with changing conditions. It can make it very difficult, if not dangerous, to bring a vessel in and out of that harbor. Even we tried to find if there were any existing plantation airstrips that used to be in operation. They're all since overgrown or non-existent. Right? So it's trying to find as many solutions to provide connectivity, knowing that when we throw out the solution of chain of craters, that solution is only viable if the eruption doesn't turn and go in that direction as well. So again, it's trying to identify as many possible options to provide that connectivity and transportation connectivity for that whole region if it becomes isolated.
thank you. I also ran into the same problem that you mentioned regarding federal assistance. And as you well know, the governor makes the request, and then the president makes a declaration for public assistance or individual assistance. And like you said, this disaster hasn't occurred yet. And that was the hardest part. And that's what I explained to the federal delegation. When I spoke with Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa, I asked her a question after our in-length discussion. What would Dan and Noi do in this situation? And I figured it was the right person to ask that question. And she told me that because he's such an influential person, he would get the military involved right off the bat. And I would like to see the military more involved. I know right now the disaster hasn't occurred and the request hasn't been, I know you're just waiting to pull the trigger. But right now, I feel like there's homes, they're already evacuating. These homes are empty, and we need more presence of police, military, some way to make sure everybody's safe. I know it might be early, but I feel like the danger's there. And in my gut opinion, and I just feel like the police, we need to get more presence, and also we need to get military help. There's one more question I have, but I know I'm gonna run out of time. This time I kept my composure. I lost track of time the first time I spoke. But I do have one more question, and this regards to the private roads. It's because I spoke with the boards and they have concerns, and I just wanted to ask you, but I'm gonna yield at this time and give Councilmember Willie the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. I'm going to call on Ms. Willie next, but since we are now well within the second round, it would, after Ms. Willie, would anyone have a problem if I asked a few questions? Because if it triggers more comments or questions, I'm not going to stop this. Okay?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
We have a couple of other committees, and we have administration waiting, and
Okay.
I wanted to see if maybe we could somehow talk about that, if we're going to decide to maybe recess them or something like that, so we could let people know, because who knows how long
Okay.
this is going to take.
All right. This is important. All right. So, wait, Ms. Willie's, do we need to take the recess now and let them know what's going on? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that we come to a conclusion of what we were going to maybe do with those other committees, because we're going to have to open them up and do the recessing,
Yes.
but as long as we knew, we could then notify the folks that were waiting, because I see Mr. Sitko still sitting out here.
Okay.
I don't want to take a recess.
Okay.
We can,
I frankly think we can get through this in 5 or 10 minutes, but I certainly have questions myself. But
I think what Councilmember Kern is saying is that some of the committee stuff, like possibly the Finance Committee, we have 2 items left on the agenda. He's probably suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe we recess that to put it onto my next committee, and because we still have other committees to hear from also. So I would be in agreement with that, because I don't want to be so exhausted, because this is important, and that we not have a good discussion that we need to on that 2 items that are very important as well.
And you just explained that much better than I did, and that's the
Okay.
point of maybe recessing those
All right.
meetings. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We'll go on here, Ms. Willie, and then I'll have a few questions.
yeah. I guess one of my issues is really that we do have in place a plan, like if things were suddenly going to rapid. I mean, I can just remember watching Katrina, and it's like moving in, well, maybe it's going to go to Mexico, and maybe it's going to go to Florida. Let's wait and see. And then suddenly there it is, and it's like, what do? I don't have a plan. So I think the way this flow is working, the likelihood is it's going to continue slow and this, and then break out and move, and that we really don't know where the optimal access points are. And we don't know that, but I think also along the lines of Councilmember Ligon, that we have in place, whether it's the military, if all of a sudden we say Plan X, call, it's in place. I also see all the CERT groups. I mean, I'm in contact with the 3 major ones in my district. I'm trying to get them to work together. You're not just North Kohala, you're not just Waikoloa, you're not here. But also, if there's something in Puna, that at a certain point, these are people with expertise. We're doing all this radio training. Presumably, we'll get some of the radios that I got paid for back in May, but or in our contingency. But anyway, that if suddenly it's, we need these CERT people. We're suddenly having this happen, and in this one area, we just need it quick. That all of those sort of, what are those different other links? And it's always, when you're connecting and linking to people, it's, do I do what I need to do at this minute, or take the time out to set this up? And I just think, to the extent that you can utilize authorize us to say, Margaret, yes, I want you to be ready when I call you to have that your cert, or that you call Bob Hanson or whoever, or Tony, that those type of things are in place. Another issue, and I'd like Russell Rudderman to come up, I have a question for you, is in terms of like temporary housing. I think some of the questions that have come up to me where